You know, sometimes the most brilliant examples of strategy don't come from some high-powered corporate boardroom. They come from somewhere you'd least expect. Today, we're going to dig into a document that isn't a fancy research paper or a market report. Nope, it's actually a blueprint for a journey. A really well-planned academic trip that shows what happens when theory smacks right into practice.
All right, take a look at this mission statement. It sounds pretty ambitious, right? Super professional, could be straight out of a corporate training manual. It sets a really serious tone for a hands-on learning experience. But where in the world would a goal this lofty come from?
And there it is. That's the twist. That corporate-sounding goal? It's the core of a university project paper. And that right there is the heart of our story today. How a group of students turned a simple class assignment into an absolute masterclass in real-world strategic planning.
So the source for this whole thing is a paper for an MBA course, MGT 790 Strategic Management. The assignment was basically to take what they learned in class and apply it to the real world. And these students, well, they took that brief and they just ran with it.
So what was the why behind it all? I mean, this wasn't just about skipping class for a day. This was a super carefully constructed mission, and it had a really clear educational philosophy right at its center.
The entire project was built around this one big idea: experiential learning. It's this concept that you don't really understand something just by reading about it in a textbook. True understanding comes from actually doing it, thinking about it, and connecting the dots between theory and practice. This trip was basically designed to be a living, breathing case study.
And their objectives? They were crystal clear. They weren't just going to show up and look around. No way. They were going to analyze operations. They were going to practice leadership by actually planning the whole thing and develop critical thinking skills. And notice that last point. They had to turn in individual reflection reports. The learning had to be proven.
Okay, so now that we get the why, let's talk about the where. The students were supposed to connect with a small and medium enterprise, an SME. But the company they ended up choosing was anything but small.
Their target was the Nasuhua Herbs and Spice Farm. Now, on paper, it's a local Malaysian business in the agribusiness world. But what these students found was a giant just hiding in plain sight. You got to get ready for this.
First, let's just talk about the sheer scale. The plantation is a massive 3,200 acres. To give you some perspective, that's like more than 2,400 football fields. Just massive.
And it's not just big, it's incredibly biodiverse. We're talking 135 different kinds of herbs, sourced from all over the globe and all grown organically.
And the output, the farm cranks out up to 10 metric tons of raw herbs and spices every single day. The complexity of running that kind of operation is just staggering.
So here's the bottom line. This was their SME, the largest herbs and spices plantation in all of Asia. This wasn't just a field trip, it was basically an expedition to the heart of a regional industry leader.
So, faced with a company of this size, the students couldn't just show up and wing it. They had to strategize. They had to plan out every single little detail to squeeze every bit of learning out of their one day on site.
And this is where their strategic thinking just shines. They set themselves up like a real company. They formed a committee with really clear roles and responsibilities. They had a project director, a finance manager, the whole shebang. I mean, this is organizational design 101, but put into practice. This was not just a group of friends. This was a functioning project team.
And their timeline just shows you how serious they were. This was not a last-minute plan. It was a process that took nearly a month, from the initial briefing and even a pre-visit to the site, all the way to submitting their final report a week after the event. Every single phase was documented.
The day itself was scheduled down to the minute to maximize their learning. It wasn't just a simple tour. It included a formal Q&A session with experts from the company, lunch at their specialty restaurant, and even dedicated time for discussion and analysis before they even headed back. Not a single minute was wasted.
Of course, no strategic plan is complete until you figure out what you need to pull it off. So that brings us to the budget. They put together a super detailed budget proposal. The biggest chunks of money went to transportation, meals for the whole group, and even custom t-shirts for the team. Every single expense was accounted for, which really shows practical financial management skills from this group of 8 students and their lecturer.
The grand total came to just under 1,000 Malaysian ringgit. This number, it's not just a cost, it's the tangible price tag for one single high-impact day of real-world learning, all planned out and justified by the students themselves.
So,
When we step back and look at this whole proposal, from the big, lofty goals all the way down to the line item budget, what's the big takeaway? What's the real lesson hiding inside this student paper?
It's this. It's the bridge between theory and practice. Look, strategic thinking isn't just some abstract idea. It's figuring out how to arrange 3 cars for a 133-kilometer trip. Leadership capabilities is what it takes to get all your peers on the same page. Financial management? That's budgeting for lunch. This is where strategy gets real.
And that's the beautiful lesson this document teaches all of us. Grand visions and big ideas are great, they're essential, but they are absolutely nothing without the groundwork. Every great strategy is just a collection of small, well-executed, practical steps.
Which really leaves us with this final thought to chew on. The next time you're planning a meeting, or a trip, or even just a really busy day, maybe take a closer look. You might be surprised to find out just how much strategy is hiding in all those little details.